Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Premier Pundits podcast. It's Monday, and Mondays always mean that I'm joined by the fantasy doc himself, Mr. 3CB Performance, Raj Brar in the house. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. A lot of interesting news coming out.
A lot of interesting news. Look, the Super League's been done to death now. I'm finished. I'm over that.
Yeah,
let's just stick to injuries. And we've had a few high-profile knockbacks this weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, where shall we start? We'll start with Friday night. And man of the moment, Harry Kane, Mr. Kane. Tottenham talisman, without a manager, Jose Mourinho, who it may have slipped under the radar under the Super League, but Mourinho's gone. Worryingly, we've seen Harry Kane limp off on Friday evening with another ankle problem. We know that he's got a history of ankle issues. It's a big week for Tottenham. They've got a Premier League match midweek, and then they've got the Carabao Cup final this weekend. Now, again, there's not a lot of information come out from the club. We do know that Kane was scheduled for a scan on Monday, but we're yet to have an update. He hasn't been involved in training today with the group. I think Ryan Mason is taking over charge of that, which comes as no major surprise. But again, from looking at those video footage and your interpretation of maybe what happened, could you give us a little bit more detail, Raj, on what you think may have happened there?
Yeah, so looking at the footage, he turned the ankle inwards, inversion sprain. I think the concern here is that this one was a contact injury where he was rolled into a little bit, which may hint at a little more severity than his past ones where he kind of just turned it on his own. And I mean, he limped off. I did see footage of him leaving the match without a boot on. He was limping, but walking without a boot, which is a good sign, but then not training. He's almost assuredly out midweek. We'll see what the scan says, but then Carabao Cup as well is going to be a race for fitness as well. I think with Kane, it's hard to say. He pushes himself so much physically, which might be a reason why he keeps having these successive, injuries. But again, that's one to see. It really depends on if he's back in training by midweek. He might have a shot, but very hard to say. There's so many outside factors.
Yeah. Given what we know of Harry Kane's ankles and having almost that little bit of laxity in the joint, would that have helped him in a way in terms of minimizing the damage to that ligament in that role with that, that external force pushing that joint?
Yeah, it can be a little helpful here because it allows that ligament to already stretch a little more than usual and not be as taut, which comes with, some negatives, but in this case, potentially some positives as well.
Yeah, and so negative, I'm presuming that if there is a laxity in the joint and the joint does become too unstable, then maybe some kind of surgical procedure required, maybe, is it? Or?
Yeah, potentially down the line, they might need what we call lateral stabilization to make that ligament, taut and stabilize that joint. But from my understanding, he hasn't had any ongoing swelling or inflammation that I've seen, that I've heard of. So maybe, yeah, but certainly at some point down the line. And also we know just from repetitive ankle injuries, you're creating trauma every time within that joint. So it wouldn't surprise me down the line at all.
Yeah. And looking at the wider picture, thinking about England at Euro 2021, I mean, is that a concern maybe for England supporters, given the fact that, we've had an injury to Harry Kane, what amounts, so close to the end of the season and just before the tournament?
I mean, I think with Kane, the concern isn't that he'll get back. He's shown that ability. It's can he not re-injure it again during the tournament? Every time he injures the ankle, he increases the re-injury risk. Every time he rushes back, he increases that re-injury risk, right? So it's that he's kind of playing with fire a little bit. The question becomes, how long can you hold that fire off? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Well, in recent podcasts when we've spoke, Ross, we've had a common theme running through all of the injury updates. And I'm going to stick with that type of theme and scenario this time, which is the foot and the ankle. And I'm going to go back to my hometown club. We had, at the time, what appeared to be pretty devastating news, the fact that our skipper, Jamal Lascelles, had picked up a stress fracture of the foot, potentially ending his season. Now, subsequent results, both for Newcastle and the likes of Fulham, means that, you know, the loss of the skipper may not be so bad, you know, in the grand scheme of things. Now, the player himself has sort of come out and said, look, the intention is I'm going to play again this season. You know, I suppose the question I want to ask is, well, you know, what is a stress fracture of the foot? What's it caused by? And realistically, could we be expecting maybe Jamal Lascelles back within maybe that sort of 6 to 7 week time frame?
Yeah, so for the first question, a stress fracture essentially occurs when you repetitively overload a bone in the foot, and that can lead to those micro fractures, which then eventually leads to a stress fracture in the foot. It sounds like to me, I mean, of course, I know he wants to come back. He's the captain, right? He wants to be there for, I don't, like you said, the relegation aspect might be out of it now, but I think he wants to be there with the team. Sounds like wishful thinking, though. That would be about, what, 6 to 7 weeks. I don't know if the club will even risk him on the back end like that unless they really badly need him. So, yeah, it just sounds like a player who wants to be out there, but we hear that all the time.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, last game of the season, Craven Cottage, Fulham, it will be home supporters at the ground, but it looks at this moment in time that we're probably going to be safe. And yeah, I'm with you. There's no need for Steve Bruce or Newcastle to risk Lascelles, ease him out of it, you know, and keep him ready for pre-season, make sure he's 100%.
Great.
Moving on, another big player, Manchester City. Again, this was a difficult one. We haven't had a lot of information, but regards to Kevin De Bruyne, now the club have actually reported a problem with his left ankle stroke foot. He has had scans. He has had it assessed, and I think the imaging has come back inconclusive. There's apparently a lot of swelling in around that foot and joint, and all we know at this point that he certainly won't line up against Aston Villa midweek, and then we'll see beyond that. But I don't know if you've seen the mechanism of injury or you've seen any of the footage, you know, and if you have, what would be your interpretation of maybe what's happened with Kevin De Bruyne?
This one was hard to tell. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was while he was turning on the ball, the foot got caught a little bit. I couldn't really tell. I had a hard time telling what exactly was going on. It seems a little combination movement. And even the fact that they say, you know, ankle/foot, maybe it's in between in that, you know, the towel curl. It's so hard to say in this regard. And, you know, as we both know, they're very tight-lipped with their injuries as well, especially with the marquee player. So,
and not to be the bearer of, and I'm just speculating and I'm just putting things out there. It couldn't be the old dreaded metatarsal, could it, with the ankle roll and that stress?
I would, if it was a metatarsal, I imagine they might go that they would put foot injury unless they're just being very coy with it. Mm-hmm. That would be my guess. So, I mean, it could be when it rolls outwards, right? It takes that force on the outside. So, yeah, it could be. There's just so many variables we don't know, and there's really there's the clues that we normally have here we don't have.
Mm-hmm. And the swelling in the in and around that joint, is that a concern? The fact that it's, you know, it is heavily sort of bloated and they're not able to get that definitive diagnosis. Is that something to worry about as well?
I think it depends on when they did the imaging. Now, if that swelling is lasting 3-4 days out, that could indicate something a little bit more severe. But even sometimes with a grade 1, let's just say grade 1, you know, a lateral ankle sprain, that foot can blow up for a day or two, even with that. So it really depends on if it lasts or not.
Yeah, look, Raj, always great to talk. But I want to finish on your boys. So congratulations on reaching the Europa League semi-final. As we thought, Mikel Arteta, now the focus shifts away from the Premier League, and it's all going to be focused into Europa, and a win in that would take you through to the Champions League. Recent upturn in performances have centred around one man in the main, and that's Alexander Lacazette. Unfortunately, we've seen him limp off at the weekend with a hamstring problem. Is that a worry? First and foremost, as an Arsenal supporter, and what are your thoughts again on the possibilities of Lacazette maybe returning in any kind of time frames?
Yeah, it's absolutely a worry for two different reasons. One, just his style of play, his hold-up play really does help combine with all the creators behind him, right? He offers a very different profile than, say, an Aubameyang up front. And now we also learned that Aubameyang is dealing with malaria and the after effects of those fitness deficits. So if Lacazette, if he has a grade 1 strain, typically 7 to 10 days, he's a race for fitness for that first leg. Even then, there's a high risk for hamstring injury recurrence, which is why you always hate to see a player leave with a hamstring injury. If it's a grade 2, potentially, I think they're looking around 3 weeks, 20 days-ish. He might have an outside chance for playing in the second leg, but again, a concern for re-injury, right? And so I think the main concern is really, how does Mikel deal with that first leg if he doesn't have a healthy striker up front? Does he roll the dice on a Martinelli up there, right? Does he go with an Nketiah? Does he trust Nketiah? Hard decision, probably no great answer.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on those young shoulders. But maybe an opportunity for somebody to really step up and prove that they belong in that Arsenal 11. Listen, Raj, always great to chat on a Monday, listen to your insight. If you don't know who this guy is, it's Raj Brar, 3CB Performance. Check out his social medias. Check out his videos on YouTube. Absolutely fantastic. It's not just injuries. There's tactics analysis, there's skills analysis, and it's not even just football, soccer. There's NBA action in there. The guy does everything. Believe me. Follow the link below. Raj, for now, though, it's a thank you very much, and we speak to you very soon.
Talk to you soon.